Oh, good. We have to.
Well, good afternoon, morning, evening, everyone. Thanks for joining this session of Revit Radio, even though we are 1 week later than usual. Thankfully, Melissa emailed me this morning and said, we got Revit Radio today. Otherwise, I'd probably be sitting, they're still doing actual productive work. So thanks for everyone who's showing up. Looks like most of the names are familiar names, but I do always want to point out that this session is all about questions. So if you guys ask the questions, we will answer them. Otherwise, you get to hear the two built committee / chair members sit here and discuss the work they need to do for the built conference over the summer. So none of us, trust me, none of us want to hear any of that background stuff. So that's your encouragement to go ahead and type in questions in the question and answer pod. And of course, if you guys want to heckle us or, tell us to stop talking about built chairman / committee people stuff, feel free to do that in the chat pod. Otherwise, I am Brian. We have Melissa and Desiree, depending on how you have this set up, here to sit here and make sure, we actually go through and get some of this stuff talking about. So happy New Year to everybody. Hope everybody had good holidays and, everyone's safe and not frozen or flooded out with all the cold, crazy weather we've been having. So we've got a nice, bright and sunny 50-degree day here in Colorado, but it's going to snow tomorrow. So who knows?
That all tracks.
So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen while we're waiting for you guys to put in some questions and pop it all up there. I want to come in and start talking about just something that I was watching a webcast the other day from someone else, and the comment had got put in that you can't do averages in Revit. And however, there is no simple button to do averages in Revit schedules. I wanted to go through and just kind of walk this through, because this is something that, do you, Melissa, remember who originally put this on the Revit forum? Was it Snowy Weston who originally put this up there? Like, oh yeah, guys, it's just a simple formula. It was like a decade ago, so my brain's not that good.
I do remember the thread, but I don't remember the person.
So somebody in the Revit forum about a decade ago, when somebody was talking about, in Revit, we can't ever use the overall sum, right? So I've just dropped down the webcast I was watching was talking about, like, oh, somebody said, oh, I want to show the averages of my typical rooms, or maybe it was units, I don't remember, or exam rooms, whatever. But like, all of them are just 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 square feet off, but I just want to show the average of them, not the individual square footage of it. And this comes back to that post that was posted like over a decade ago, like, hey, you can't use the overall totals in these things as well. So coming through and just looking at this, like if I come down here and start to look at, I've got four areas called, 4 rooms called room, and 2 of them called office, right? So I've broken those down in my schedule. So in my schedule, I am sorting and grouping it simply by the name. Then what I'm doing in there is I've got it sorted by the name, and then I've got some totals to calculate the totals of each of those. And like when we're doing our occupant load calculations or plumbing calculations or anything in Revit where we want to use the overall math to figure out a calculation, but we can't do that in Revit natively. So what happens to get this to go through and do this is we actually need to start figuring out what percentage of the overall grouping that we have set up is this 1 square footage. Once we know that percentage, we can then multiply that times percentage to get the overall square footage. And it does look a little bit weird when you start coming through here and looking at, oh, gee, I see 1350. That's the sum down here, right? You see that on every single one of these. But again, if I go to sorting and grouping and uncheck itemize every instance and say, okay, now you're going to look at like, oh, here's the whole overall 1350. Now I see that 1350 here. So in the overall area, I'm summing the totals. This one, I am not. So question might be, how does that happen? Well, the biggest thing you need to do in Revit is create some calculated values. So all of these last 5 columns you see here that I highlighted in blue, these are all calculated values in the schedule, right? So the schedule is only pulling out the fields, name, and area. I pulled out count as an example, how we can't use it for the next step, but only thing I'm truly using is name and area, right? So we then have to come in here and figure out what percentage of this when we go in there. So when you go create a shared or a calculated value, give it a name, and then if you've ever noticed, you can choose between formula or percentage. Now, once you choose percentage, the first thing is going to be any of the other calculated values you have or parameters that you have inside of here. So the first of is going to be, hey, choose from one of those parameters. And in this case, I want to know the area. The by is then going to either give you grand totals, or the option you get here is how you're sorting and grouping it. So this is one I know causes a lot of people confusion. It's like, oh, how do we sort and group, or how do we get a value for by other than grand total? Well, if I jump out of this real quick and go back to sorting and grouping, if I sort and group it by name and then by area, you'll see that now when I go back to that fields tab and I go into that percentage, I don't just have name and grand totals, I have grand totals, name, and area. And so coming through here and looking at this, like, oh yeah, it's the grand totals, it's the name, it's the area, right? Again, if I cancel out of this, go back to the sorting and grouping and get rid of area and say none, then in our fields tab, for any of the percentage calculated values, we only get what it's sorted and grouped by. I kind of say this is, and I'm showing this in reality, because I get oftentimes where I'll have something like this set up, and then somebody comes into the schedule, oh, I don't want to sort it by offices, I want to sort it by number. So they change the sorting and grouping to get rid of name and switch it to be like number, and that blows up the entire schedule, right? So I point this out, an honest truth, usually in my schedules, I add a little field up here saying, do not change the sorting and grouping, or do not remove this field from sorting and grouping. We need to have that inside of there for this schedule to work. And this happens quite often with all my clients, and the code values we've got set up to do plumbing calcs and the occupant load factors, all of those things. If a client goes in and changes the sorting and grouping, he's like, oh, I want to sort it by level, not by office or whatever, then they go through and blow it up. Like, no, your code schedule doesn't work. It's like, no, my code schedule works. You just broke it, right? So going back into that fields tab again. So all I'm doing is for the percentage is saying, hey, area is a percentage by this grouping, right? So I'm grouping it by the name. This is a percentage. I'm going to go back to sorting and grouping and itemize every instance. So you can look at this and you can see that it's saying the 691 is 51% of the overall 1350. And if I come in here and just change or move one of these walls, you're going to see that those numbers can start to change. Okay, I'm probably looking at the wrong one. Let me pull this one down. You can start to see that now those numbers are changing based on here. And as this overall sum starts coming into consideration for the areas together, my average area overall for each one of those updates. So this is kind of one of the first things, kind of one of the big deals. It's just real simple, do a percentage, and then in that percentage, you then do the next field, right? So that next field is going to be simply the area by the percentage. So there's my percentage for the area, and then I come down here to this area overall, and it's literally area divided by percentage, right? That's it. So we get the percentage and then redivide that percentage into the area, which sounds pretty crazy, but then what gets giving us is the overall total. And if I were to come in here and draw in another small little wall in here, let me just go say create similar, create similar is right there. I keep missing the button. I'll put this in here. I'll go ahead and copy my room down by control dragging, right? So now I've got a new office in here, and you can see those numbers automatically updated. But again, now it's still giving me that overall total as we start to come through. So now that we've got that, when we get there and set that up, that gives us that overall area. And that's, again, that's one of those things if you wanted to, if I go back to my sorting and grouping, click down here, go to my sorting and grouping tab. In sorting and grouping now, if I uncheck itemize every instance and hit OK, you're going to see I'm going to get the same for the overall total for all of the areas as I'm getting here, like you saw. Or in Revit 23, I can't remember, did they have this in 22.1 where you get the varies in there? I think they might have. If I go back to my formatting and I say I don't want area to calculate totals and I say no calculation, now it's just going to say, hey, this varies, but the overall area is this as well. So how you ever want to look at it, I personally want to do that, but however you need to look at it, you can do that. So then to figure out the average of those, what we needed to do is use the count field. Unfortunately, we cannot in Revit use count as a calculated value, just like we couldn't be before, like we couldn't do with the sum of all of the areas, because each one is an individual element. Count for each individual element is always one. In this case, I particularly wanted that. So what I do is I have another calculated value, or it's just, I called it my fixed count, and the formula is this is always one. There's one room every time I place it. So regardless, I'm going to give myself a single room or a single value there. right? So the only reason I needed to use the fixed count or to have a number 1 in every single one of those is I now need to know, again, what percentage is this. So again, I'm going to go and check itemize every instance. And then I'm going to go back to my fields tab and show you the next one. So the next formula is percentage fixed. And again, I'm saying, hey, take that fixed count, the number 1, and what percentage of that is, again, by what I'm sorting and grouping it. So even though this is a number 1, what is that percentage of however many of these are in the sorting and grouping? So if I say okay to this, you'll see in this case I have 3, so it's 33%. In this case I have 4, it's 25%. Again, if I were to break that down and start adding it, those numbers are going to change. The reason why I need this one is for the averages, right? I need to know this percentage is 33% of the 1667. So what that's going to tell me is the average, regardless of what your square footage is on each individual one, the average of the sum of these is all going to be this. So again, I've got the percentage fixed, which I did the same as the percentage for areas, but it's just 1. And I guess I didn't actually need, I guess I could have technically done this different. I could have went into that field. I just thought of this off the top of my brain. Instead of using fixed count here on percentage fixed, I could have just said no, because I needed it here. Never mind, I lied. Scratch that. So I've got that. And then I come back here to the area average. Again, same thing. I'm just saying now take the area overall, multiply it times the percentage fixed. So take this overall area, the 1667, multiply it times whatever this is, and then that's going to be the average area. So if we really were getting into something where we were trying to come in and say, oh, we've got, typical unit 1s, and we want to know the average area of that, not of each individual one, and we were setting this up on a printable schedule, I'd go back to my sorting and grouping. I'd unitemize every instance. I would probably hide every single one of these columns. Boom, boom, boom. Say hide. And now I'm just looking at, oh, here's my room. Here's my offices. Here's my rooms. And here's their average square footage. So you absolutely can do that. Pre-build it in. I did a little Google searching, and there was a whole bunch of people saying, oh, you've got to use Dynamo to do that. You've got to run the Dynamo script. And I'm kind of like, no, you actually don't. You just need to come in and just use percentages. So, it helps to be married to somebody who knows math, or, to know people who post math formulas in the forums quite often. And I'm still trying to buy time because we only have one question so far. So I know, Melissa, how else do you guys kind of use this stuff in your template when you're starting to work on it?
Very similarly. But also with Dynamo, because John.
You also use Dynamo because you have, well, not all of us have John.
Yeah, it also helps to work with a John Pearson.
It also helps to work with a John Pearson when we're talking about that and getting into it.
No, we do very similar in our code stuff, and have that stupid count parameter.
Yeah. The fixed count parameter, you don't necessarily need all of the time. Like if I'm just trying to figure out the overall area, that's not one that I needed. It was funny. I did this in one of my fields and I had it in there. I went back, looked at my schedule. I'm going, I'm not actually using that in any of the other formulas. Why did I put it in here? It was just such a habit on certain things that you do. It's like, yeah, I needed that. So I basically do these 5 fields all of the time. I just put it in there and I'm like, wait a second. I was only using these 2 fields. I didn't need that fixed count. Okay. But again, also want to reiterate to people that you do not want to, you want to put some sort of note, like if you have this in a working schedule, add a new row up here or something like this. Come on, I want to insert below, put something in here. Do not change grouping, sorting, grouping, whatever. Something big so people understand, hey, this truly is what we need to be doing so it doesn't break the schedule. And since we did mention John Pearson's name, I do want to mention, and Melissa was jealous because John released this like a day or 2 ago, and I've already had 2 updates to it because I noticed a couple bugs. But I always get asked, how do I get my colorized tabs? You might actually sit here and notice when you look at this that I've got the colorized tabs, but John's latest update colors the properties in the project browser to be the same. So if you switch from project to project, you actually know not only by the tab you're in, but by the property. Sure, it's not working. Is it because I tiled my views? Uh-oh. Let's see if it's because I'm in a sheet view. Oh, I found another bug for John. Well, this is recording. So what minute are we in the recording? So I can just give that to John. Let me get rid of this and see if it goes back to being pink. Oh, it was literally working right before I started Revit Radio. No, there it goes. So if you're tiled, it's not working.
It could be Zoom. We found that Zoom has been like messing with all sorts of stuff lately.
Okay, well, let's tile this up and let's see. Tile it up over here, go back to the blue one. Yeah, not working when it's tiled. So maybe it's a combination of tiled and Zoom. Not sure, but I'll be having a call back to John. Maybe I'll get a third one in 3 days. So I don't know, just one of those things that's been really, really, really nice for me. It does go through and change it. I also have other add-in utilities that gives me tabs down here, and you'll see that it's still being that same color-coded border. So I don't know, something to me that was actually really, really, really nice looking at this, getting into it. It's like, oh, this is very cool. I can now just have the tabs and I know which properties of which one I'm getting into as I change out my different projects. Because I have done that before. It's like, oh, I'm in this project. Wait, ooh, now I got 50-50 split here. Sweet.
Yeah, I did.
It also could be the fact that I have this other add-in utility that's adding tabs down here too. So okay, so we only have one question here. So we'll ask this question and hopefully those will pop up into other people coming in, other different sides of some additional questions. So what kind of questions have we got, Melissa?
So our lovely, oh look, see we have another one. So our first one is, are you able to comment on why multi-category tags aren't available for architectural columns anymore?
Really? I don't know. I don't.
So your comment starts with, I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, my first comment is, huh? Let's see. I purged everything out of that. I'm gonna go ahead and close that. No. I probably did need to save something, but who knows? I was refining it when I was in my last meeting. Okay, so let's go to floor plan. Let's put an architectural column down. I rarely use architectural columns personally. I mean, usually for me, unless it's going to be some sort of like, I don't get why they have a chamfered column here. To me, that should be structural. The out of the box, it's kind of.
Are they not allowed in your household?
Yeah, it's like if you're doing a metal clad or a door column, I kind of understand this too, but like the round column and the chamfer column, I don't use those ever. Just because it drives me crazy that that should be a structural column. What? Oh, am I trying to really try that again? Insert load family. I won't do it from chamfer column. I am under just columns, right? Yeah. We'll do the Doric column. Okay, now we'll go back to architecture. We'll go to column. I swore I clicked column architecture before. I might not have. Cool. Oh, did you guys ever notice this bug as well? Have you tried to place, and just FYI, if anybody ever wanted to know what it was, have you ever tried to place a column and it doesn't show up in your preview? I don't know if everybody has this problem. It's mostly with structural columns. It's because your level is not at 0 in your project environment. So I know a lot of my clients, they start their level 1 at 100 and you go to place a structural column and you do not see the preview of it until you place it. It's because your view range is below the level you're on. So it looks at if the show family pre-cut and plan view is turned on in your column, structural column family, and you're placing it on something other than 0, that will not display the preview of the column. It's a pain in the ass. It is a bug. Okay, so we got this one here. We're gonna go ahead and try to do a multi-category tag, get back to the original question. Tag, where am I going? Annotate. Multi-category tag. Sure. I don't know. Is there an out of the box multi-category tag?
I haven't looked.
Multi-category tag. Okay, so it is working for me.
Uh-oh.
So this is a multi-category tag. I got it working for me. I have no idea what this is tagging. I'm assuming probably comments. No, that's a type parameter. So what did I change? So it's the type mark. So what must be the problem, Rowan, is you're selecting something in the multi-category that doesn't in your tag, that doesn't exist in that family, would be my only guess. He's blaming it. He was in Revit 22, not Revit 23.
Oh yeah,
Um,
totally blame it on Revit.
Totally. It was just a glitch in the matrix. Yeah, I'm not sure. Because I thought they were still there. They did add more categories to it. And somebody actually did post recently that what the multi-categories tags does not pick up on a lot of the new categories in Revit 23. So like in Revit 23, we got things like, what was it, vertical circulation or something like that. I did notice in one of the Autodesk forums that somebody was saying some of these new categories, they don't pick up on multi-category tags. So not sure, maybe they're doing the same problem, Rowan. I didn't really follow that post any further. That somebody commented, I was like, huh, interesting. So working for me. I think you just need to check your tag and make sure it's pulling out a parameter that exists within that family.
And I also wouldn't say it wasn't a thing that didn't work in 22 that now works again.
Yes. It might have worked in 2022, but not 22.1, but 22.1.1, something like that.
It happens.
So I see we got a couple more questions. So keep flowing those questions, everybody. I still have, a whole 40 minutes to spend. So we got to get some more questions up there.
Well, do you want our next one from Rick is, do you know anything regarding the release of ACC for government?
Okay, so we'll hit one more question up there because the answer to this one is nope, no clue. I do know that Autodesk has been trying to get the government approval for the BIM 360 doing a separate thing, because I do have some projects on government work with some of my clients, and they keep saying they meet, security level whatever, but they don't meet security level higher than that. So they meet the base security level, you can do it on BIM 360, but if you're trying to get into one of those higher ones, no, it does not. Last I heard, and that was probably about a year ago, Autodesk just kept saying, yeah, we're working on it. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what that is behind the scene, but they're working on it. Just like our handrail issues we have in Revit, they're working on it.
I didn't think they were even saying they were working on that anymore.
No, I don't think they are actually.
Well, maybe you should open up 22 and just see if this thing works in 22.
I can do that while we're answering the next question. I'll go ahead and open up Revit 22. So what's our next question? Why that's taking forever and a day? That's the problem with having too many add-ins. You get too many add-ins, it takes so long for Revit to open.
That is true.
So what's our next question while we're waiting for that to open?
Okay, so we'll go to Rick just posted another one. Does the recipient of a Revit project file need the keynote file for the keynotes to appear correctly?
No, until they try to manipulate something in that object. So I know for a lot of my clients, they have the Revit keynote files. I open them up on even BIM 360. The keynote file is not on BIM 360. It's on their server. I will still see all of the keynotes properly until I attempt to go manipulate something. Then it'll just come up and give question mark. But once they open it again, it obviously repairs that and fixes it. So no, technically you don't need to have that keynote file. Now, I don't know if that file has been like e-transmitted, or what the heck did we call that? I forget what it's called, transmit a model, whatever that is. If they do that, I'm not sure what happens. I don't even know if that will even bring it to you. I don't know if it brings the keynote file along when you do the transmit a file, but no, I've done it with seeing the stuff. It's just fine. I've even opened up like my own thing where I've lost the keynote file. So I've lost the keynote file of mine and go through and say, oh, okay, look, I forgot where it is. It can't find it. I moved folder structures, whatever. And I still see the keynotes again until I go to manipulate it. So you should be okay without having to have the keynote file for them to appear correctly. But I'm not sure at what point in time Revit's going to regenerate those things and say, hey, no, I'm sorry. I'm just going to give you questions.
There you go.
Cool. So 22, I think, opened. So we'll start a blank new project. Not with the construction template. Oh my God, I must have broken my INI.
What?
I thought I just deleted the construction template out of there. It's one of the worst templates ever. Because I set my phases up for superstructure and all of that great thing, breaking a building down. Come on. Column, architecture, put one. Tag. Multi-category. Sure. Yep, just do your own. Still working for 2022 as well.
Bummer. Maybe, well, and then you can run it down. It could just be that file that you were working on. It could be the tag. Could be your computer. Could be the day of the week.
It could be you. I know, Rowan, it could
I
be
was
you,
trying to be
I'm just
nicer.
saying.
It could be
Oh,
those.
he gives me enough crap when he asks questions on Revit Radio. I can
All right, fair. Oh, look. Well, it's a good thing that you got 2022 open because we have another question from 22.
Well, there you go.
So Christopher's asking, is there any idea in Revit 22 when you use keynote tags, when you add a host, the leader goes out to the middle of nowhere and you have to drag it back to the component you were trying to add?
So doesn't necessarily have to do with the keynote tag. So the reason why that's happening is when you are going to tag, right here, you have your tags set to be attached end. And when you set it up to be an attached end, Revit looks for the quadrant of that family, right? So you can see that I've got this tag here. This tag is already there. It's been set to be an attached end, not a free end. And if I come in here and edit this family, this column family, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to go into a floor plan to do this. Use floor plan, ground floor. If there is something in that family, usually a reference plane that is outside of it, or it could be a reference line, who knows that, or whose definition is set to be strong or set to be weak, medium, weak, strong, or named, it will think that's the extent of the family. So if I came in here and drew a reference plane, I believe a reference plane will break this as well. And I take this reference plane here and I'm going to change its properties to be a strong reference. I'm going to go ahead and load this back into my project. I'm going to override it. First off, you can see I'm grabbing that stupid column family. Wait, where is it? It's way up here. And I'm going to try to retag this. And it might not be a reference plane that's doing, or a reference plane. It could be a reference line, but let me go try to tag again. Let's just do tag. Make sure my tag is attached end. I probably don't have a structural column tag loaded, so we'll go to multi-category tag again. Or you said keynote. I'll do keynote tag. Still set to be, I got changes to be attached in, click it here, boom. Okay, so that's not doing it, cool. Let's try it with a reference line. Create reference line, changes to be a strong reference as well, and just go, woo, do this, load this back into a project. The reason it's doing it is there is something in that family that is saying, hey, I mean, you can see that the tag actually moved, but I don't know why it's not giving me. No, I did not double click you. I just selected you. I don't get honestly why it's doing that. What is it? Possibly because something's extruded, but just not. It used to do it with reference planes. What if I go create an extrusion over here, finish it, but then say that's not visible for whatever crazy reason, and load that into the project. Nope. Still not doing it. I'm really confused. That usually breaks it. Maybe it's because I'm doing it with a column family and not something else. Let's try the cheesy desk. See if I can break it with a cheesy desk.
And while you're doing that, some of in the chat, they're talking about showing it to somebody else. I can confirm that that works, even for me. Like the time you get annoyed enough to say, hey, watch this, it keeps doing that, it stops. Whatever it can do to make you feel like an idiot, I think that's what it does.
Yep, load into project one. The tag's moving, the extent of the tag moved, but the leader isn't. That's weird. It's usually something to do with that, and there's something inside the family that's outside of there. Oh, you're talking if you hit add, but you can only add leader in 22 to text. You can't add leader to keynotes. Sorry, Rick said it's secondary leaders to tag a second element. You've seen the same issue. I've seen the issue too. Usually it's when I open up the family, there's something rogue off on the side of the family that's causing that to happen. Of course, I'm trying to break it now and I can't get it to break, even though you're like been having it break for you for years. It's usually something like that. I don't know why I can't get this to break. That usually breaks it. Because FreeEnd lets you move it anywhere you want. Oh, that's a new tag. So if I go to FreeEnd, I can move it. Maybe it's just when you're tagging it with the FreeEnd. Maybe that's what I'm missing. Create similar, FreeEnd, tag this, not usually. Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing. No, add remove host. That was in 22. Gotcha. Is that a 22 feature? I totally thought that was 23. Add remove host, do this one. Yeah, I can't get it to break. Should really break for me. Add remove host, this one. Cool. Well, I would think it'd be breaking. It's not. But yes, I understand what you guys are talking about. I've seen that. Like I said, I would verify in those families that there's not something floating out there. There's not a reference plane or reference line that has a strong, weak, not a reference. I have not seen that in either of in doing multi-tags where you can add remove host. I've not seen that happen personally. I'm not saying it's not, so I haven't had to go try to troubleshoot that one yet. Trying to change these around back, got nothing. Can't get it to break. I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, see, it's only adding more credence to the if you have somebody else watching. Plain A.
Yeah, I always love it. I get clients. I've been struggling with this for an hour, and they call me up, and they call me up and they go through it and it works fine for them. They're like, great, thanks for the help, appreciate it, bye. I'm like, cool, glad I could be of assistance doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's totally a thing.
So what other kind of questions do we have here?
So our last question from Anonymous is how do you export shared parameters that exist in a project if you don't have the original shared parameter file?
So it'll be the same if you're in a project or if you are in a family environment. It doesn't really matter. You just need to get to where those parameters are. So in the project environment, you're going to go to manage and you go to project parameters if it's something that's within the project. You'll see these are all of my crazy parameters for code, etc., that I've added inside of here. Well, if you don't happen to have one, when you select this and you hit the edit parameter button, you will get the button here to export. Mine is not grayed out because my shared parameter file has this one in it already. So if I cancel out of this and I go up to my shared parameters, I'm going to point to a different shared parameter file. Sure, we'll try that one. No, that one probably has it as well, but we'll see. Manage project parameters, come into here, grab this, say edit. Cool. Well, that client has my shared parameter in there as well. But so normally you would just get this export. And then once you run that export and you do it, if you then go open up the shared parameter file you pointed it to, inside of there, you will get one here called exported parameters. So like these ones are ones I've exported from clients where I've got their stuff and I was like, hey, I need to just grab your shared parameter real quick to tweak something for you. I open up their family or I open up their project and I can just say, hey, let me go grab that and export it. Like I said, it's the same thing if you're in the project or in a family environment too. So if I go and look for a family that's got a shared parameter, sure, code stuff probably actually doesn't. Let me go up one folder and let me just go into my casework. I know there's a ton of shared parameters in there. So if I open up a family, The only difference is you could you're not going to go to manage project parameters. Oops, not the button I wanted. You don't get project parameters up here. So what you're going to do is go just into your family types, find something that is a shared parameter. You won't actually know if it's a shared parameter or not, but if I go hit modify, it'll say shared parameter, and then I would get the capability to export that. In the family environment, you can also select to swap it out if you wanted to swap it out for a different type of parameter. So family environment, you can swap it out to another one. Project environment, select is grayed out. That doesn't exist. The other way to do it is I think the DI roots tools. If I go into the D root tools and I go into parameter manager, I think it'll come through here. And this is a free utility. It'll start saying, hey, look, these are shared parameters. But then you can go through here and say, hey, I want to export shared parameters. So the DI roots tool, if you need to do more than one, rather than going through the whole little dialog box of this, you'll see that it's going to come through here. All of these are the shared parameters. So it's not pulling out any parameter that is not a shared parameter. So then you can be like, cool, I wanted to select all of those and say export. It'll then export it out to a TXT file that you could then import into like something else. You'll see, okay, here's my TXT, and then I could go import those in to another thing. Try to find an add-on utility. I think CTC has one. I don't know if theirs is free or not. Because the other thing that's a real pain in the ass about shared parameters is you can only do one at a time. If you want to bring in 10 shared parameters in your project, bring in one, bring in another, bring in another. It's kind of a pain in the ass. But if you got the whole import export, you can go in here and say, hey, I want to import a shared parameter file. Grab that shared parameter file, which would be here for my shared parameters. Then it'll show all of them, and then you can bring them all in. It does show you where they, if they're in the project or whatever, what type of grouping they are. But now I can say, hey, let me go ahead and import those, and now all those shared parameters are going to be inside of here. So I do suggest getting some sort of tool to do that. It makes life much, much easier when you get into it.
Yes, a comment about using schedules. That's what I like to do too.
Yeah, and then that was going to be my other thing. So for all of my architectural clients who are usually the lead, they usually have 15, 20, 30 parameters for everybody to organize their sheets so they can actually get them to schedule properly. So the other thing that's really, what was that, Melissa?
I said 15 or 20. That's impressive.
Just for sheet. Well, actually, I think the one client is 45, but so one thing on that too is like if you get into like something like, oh, I've got my, not the view list, I wanted to get into the sheet list. I don't even know if I have one on here. Sheet list. So in my sheet list here, I've got all of these parameters for discipline, grouping, sorting, schedule, those types of things, which is how it works. So one of the easiest ways to do it is to literally just come in here and say copy to clipboard. I now have this schedule in here. Again, those were shared parameters. If I go start a new project, maybe I shouldn't have closed my other project. But if I go start a new project, then I can just paste that schedule, and that schedule, there's no sheets in this new thing, so the schedule is going to be blank, but it will bring across those parameters, shared or project, into this file as well. So it doesn't matter if they're shared parameters, it doesn't matter if they're project parameters, anything within that schedule that are within the project, it will bring it across. Now, if I were to come in and bring in my schedule for my millwork, it's not going to bring any of those parameters across because those parameters are all modified out. Those parameters are all parameters from shared parameters from within the family. So you'll see I've got this, and now if I go to manage project parameters, those three parameters came across, giving my occupant, grouping, and discipline. So, yep, schedules are a great way to do that as well. Again, in the project world, it doesn't care if they're shared or I think these are actually all just project parameters. If I manipulate one, I don't believe any of these were shared parameters, but it would work the same if it was. Then just to throw it out there, since we are in Revit 23 and I have 20 minutes to kill and there's only one more question, just to throw it out there as well, is Autodesk did bring in this new tool called, sorry, it's on the Manage tab. This new tool they have inside of there called Parameter Service. So in 2021, I think it came out as an introduction. They have this thing up here called Parameter Service. When you do the Parameter Service, this is actually a place where you can start sharing parameters on like BIM 360. And if somebody's invited to that project, they can then go get those parameters as well. So Autodesk Theory is on this. Oh, gee, we've got these 30 parameters that we are using, particularly for this project, we can store this parameter service on BIM 360, and it'll be able to go through and start picking up some of the data that we see inside of there, right? So this was me playing with some of the stupid things inside of there. You can go through, these can be on there. So anybody who has access to this BIM 360 project can open these up, right? You can even pull them from a different BIM 360 project, whatever. You can open up any of the projects that you're part of. You can then download any one of those parameters that you see fit. My biggest issue with this, when I start looking at this, different than shared, these are still like shared parameters. They're still got a unique GUI and everything. They're very similar to shared parameters. But what I don't like about this is in this file, you have to determine if they're instance or type. I know Parallax, Melissa, and everybody, I have a height parameter that in some families it's instance and some families it's type based. I can't imagine having to have a parameter called height instance and another one called height type. Because then when I select a family, I've got a parameter called height instance. I'm like, that's just stupid. So personally for me, I have not really taken this into consideration because you have to choose between instance or type. But it does make sense. It shows you what the category is, what it's using it for. So it's kind of a nice theory on here. I just think they've got a lot of work to get going on this.
Jason says you can still change it before you add it to the family or project. I haven't played with it, so.
Unless they changed something on the parameter services recently. Last time I checked them, I'm like, hey, I wanted to go grab this one. I can change it, but again, then it's changing it globally. Next time I need to do it, I've got to change it and bring it in. The next time I got to change it, I got to do it, bring it in. So I'm constantly changing it back and forth. And it's kind of like, oh, this just seems great, insane to me. And this is just editing it. So I've edited it here. This doesn't actually bring it in to your, no, actually you can. Yeah, it's already, and you say, okay, well, these are the ones in this particular project. So that doesn't help me out at all. Yeah, so you can change it here. But again, it's one of those things of, I don't know. I've got to look at this. I'm actually going to be talking to some of the developers on this as well in the next week or so. And that said, follow-up, does it definitely stay type instance? It used to be. Jason just showed me I could change it. Like once you created that before, you couldn't even edit it. It was crazy. The one nice thing about the parameter service is one of the options, I shouldn't close the dialogue, but one of the options when you're in there is you can import your own shared parameter file and it'll theoretically bring them all across. But if you do that, it just automatically brings in all of those shared parameters as instance-based parameters, not type-based. So if there were some you wanted to say these are always type-based, you would have to go through and manually manipulate that. So yeah, instance. Now this one got moved to the type because it's type. Yeah, it's installed. You do not have to be part of the beta. They're calling this, what do they call these, Melissa? They call them pre-release somethings. So it's in the program for anybody to be able to go use and play with. And they are looking for people to give them input on this stuff. I know they sent an email like 2 weeks ago. Hey, have you played with this? Do you actually want to check preview technology? Thank you, Jason. Like, do you want to play with this? Do you want to come in and check it out? They've actually been doing surveys and stuff for people too. So yeah, no, this parameter service is technically for everybody. It is natively installed. It's just like there's some MEP tools that you can get installed as well, which are not beta programs. They are preview technologies for, they want more people to give input on it.
Yeah, wasn't that like the Load Autodesk family was a preview technology at first too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe that one was too. The Load Autodesk family was as well.
I have to say I hated that until I was teaching classes at the community college. And then it was like, oh, okay, now I can go get some of their out of the box crap.
Yeah, to me, it was just, I didn't like the UI on this. It's like, yeah, you still kind of have all the same theoretically folder structure, etc. over here, but it just, I don't know. The one time I was using this and trying to got into a slow thing. I do like all the pretty little previews they give you of all the stuff, but it was just like, oh, it was taking a little bit longer and the search wasn't working the way I wanted. It's a little bit better since the first release, but yeah. You can also toggle lots of views and names, but cool. So we got a couple more questions. What other questions we got here?
So here's another one with tags with multiple labels. So Yasser says, I had an issue with tags with multiple labels with breaks that the top left or right alignment didn't work properly for them. Have you ever had such a problem?
not sure if I totally understand the question. So if I grab this and I say add or remove hosts and I go boom, boom, boom. When
So
you
you
say
need to put
breaks,
multiple labels in there. So go edit your family and
oh,
add another
oh,
label.
got it. Yes, sorry, I was thinking this feature, since my brain was on that still. Thank you for reading that properly, Melissa, and not just assuming what it said. So you're talking about when you edit the label and you're like, cool, I've got type mark, but I'd also like to have comments in here and I want to use the break.
Yes, and that's what I'm assuming is right. So let us know.
And
Let us
then
know
you
if you
said,
both read it wrong.
and then you said you wanted to go to the left and to the top, and the brakes broke on you. One thing that might be breaking on you is if your width of your text box or label box, I should say, is too narrow. Could be a problem. I think that was project one. We'll hope that was project one. Yay. And then we need to add comments to these. Does anybody else hate the fact they added IFC in 2013? So I haven't had issues with these being top and left justified, unless, like I said, if you do come back here and if this would be too narrow, I have seen issues with this being too narrow, and then like it looks like, oh, it's not actually breaking. It's, you know, adding the MMENTS or whatever to the second line. All right. And then let's grab the comments of all these and make it something longer. Get my fingers on the right keys. Oh, I thought I had all four of them selected. So I have seen it do this where it looks like it's breaking and it shouldn't be. That's all I can come up with. Yes, sir. So hopefully that fixes it. Try playing with the width of your tag. All I got.
We tend to use the stupid invisible line
Yeah.
tags just to keep it right where we want it.
Yeah, my only problem with the invisible line trick is like, oh, I always wanted this in the center or whatever else. So you do go draw that invisible line. That then when somebody's like, oh, here's the invisible line, and I need it to be centered, so I got to do this, right? Then when it goes to the bottom, and then the bottom's down here. So there is a way around that if you do type, just FYI, because this invisible line doesn't get seen. But if you turn the visibility of it off, so you can put a parameter on here. So if it's bottom justified, you can have a tag with a bottom justified. So if it needs to be bottom justified, so we'll just do here and we'll just call it my, I've got to create a parameter, not start typing, my justy. And we load this back into the project. Overwrite the existing. So you can see, get rid of these stupid comments and all these. Cancel. I don't need to save the project. I hit the wrong button. Let me get rid of my comments and make it something a little bit more reasonable. Right, so this tag is going to say set there, but if I go in and you can see it's right below the X's here, but if I go in and say edit type and I make that not visible, oh, I thought they were going to do it. Oh no, I do. Yeah, I thought that's how I did it. I'll have to remember what I've done to that. I'll have to open up some old tags, but yeah, there's a way to get it to adjust. Oh, I add a parameter to the length of it. So you can add a parameter to the length of the invisible line. So if it's bottom justified, then its length becomes like 0 height, or, you know, barely any small height for this. If it's bigger, then, you know, so I actually parameterize the length of the line for if it's top or bottom justified. Yeah. And then I have duplicate tag types. Like here's one here: left leaders, right leaders, bottom leaders. It's stupid.
Beth is saying you could check the wrap only between parameters in there.
Yes, there is that too. So if we select this, thank you for the comment, Beth. We grab this. There is the wrap between parameters only button here too. Check that as well when you start looking at it.
So many fun things we have to do. And if they would just literally give us a point to tell it where to connect our leader.
Yes, leader points, left, top, bottom. We have flip controls, and we've got 4 flip controls. I would love to have 4 leader points. A top leader point, a bottom, a right, and a left.
for sure. Okay, so let's see. Augustina's asking, is there any way to order parameters on the properties panel? For example, instance sheet parameters.
Yes. The parameters in the project environment, when I go to project parameters, unlike anything else, there's not like a move up, move down. When I manipulate this, I can say it's here, here, here. The way to get them in the right order is to put them in Revit in the right order. So if you want one first, you've got to load that project parameter first. If you want the next one second under analysis results, you have to load that one second. They have a display order like most things in Revit, all based on the way they are loaded. So if you're like, cool, I'm going to add parameter 1 through 10, like crap, I needed insert 1 between 5 and 6. You have to go back and re-add, delete 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, re-add the new one you wanted between there, and then add those back in, which isn't actually, you know, functional or realistic, because most of the time those are already in schedules, and if you remove them, you lose them. So yes, you can, but in reality, no, you're just host. I had one client pay me to do that, like,
Yeah.
oh, I needed those in order. Could you please re-get those? It's just driving me crazy. They're not in order. I'm like, cool, sure. So I moved everything, redid it,
Sure,
and
I had
fixed
a
all
spare
this.
week.
I mean, I know my OCD and my type A personality gets me sometimes, but it's something like that, it's like, no, I'll just learn to deal. I'll take medicine for that.
They've got drugs.
And by medicine, I mean I'll drink tequila. So
all right, let's see. Rowan's asking if you could do a quick demo of the Ideate Tools annotation tool.
yeah, this is actually a fun little tool. So on the Ideate software, one of the new features they have was this annotate tool. And I am just going to come in here and run a dimension from this one to this one and deliberately put it over this. The Ideate annotate tool, and I don't know everything about it. There's a lot more it'll do than what I know about, but the best thing I like to call it is it's clash detection for annotation. Couple things that always crack me up, and they still are working on some things. So like, I know we got a couple structural people here. It does not work well with beam system tags. It does not work well with span direction symbols, because those theoretically expand the entire size of the object. But it will start coming through here, and I love this. I don't have any of those things. I don't have specialty equipment tags or in here loaded. But a lot of times what it'll start doing, and it's not working right now. Let me try it again with a piece of text. Again, it's gonna be one of those things that I can't get it to break right. Text. Try it again, ideate, but you can start running this, and it does a pretty good job. It's not foolproof. It doesn't get everything at this point in time. But it'll start telling you, oh, you've got this overlapping that. And of course, it's not working at all for me. Sweet. Active view, sort by category, filter none, tags, dismissed issues. I don't know why it's not working. It should be working for me. Try this. Let me try the refresh just to see. I don't even get why it's telling me I have 8 blank tags in here. I mean, this is just the tag category is turned off probably, but I don't know why this isn't working. It should be working. But usually it'll come in here and start to tell you that, hey, by the way, you've got this text or this dimension over this other types of things, etc. And it's actually working pretty well. I really like how it's getting set up, and it's been pretty great. And I've actually run it on a couple of my clients' projects, and it's funny. They're like, holy crap. And I thought I had organized and went through all of this. And it's like, here you go. Now, with some of it, just like anything else, it's actually looking to the bounding box. So like if I had this here and it's technically still visible or still readable, it might say, oh, since the text box goes out to here, this is a clash. But I'd still rather it do that than, you know, not come up with it. And I really don't get why this dimension didn't overlap this, but kind of one of those scenarios. But yeah, it's a pretty cool tool. I do tell everybody, if you have the Ideate tools, look at this. This came out in the latest release, or came out in the release that was around AU last year. So yeah, go through it, try to run it. And it does other things too. I'm just not 100% sure. You can say, hey, I want to distribute things horizontally, vertically. I want to go justify all these to the left, right, etc. I think there's even, you can view all of the issues and then export them out as well. So some other tools in here that I haven't totally gotten into. Really got into a whole lot of other things, but it's pretty cool. Like I said, I've ran it on a few of my clients' projects just to see on real actual views with a whole bunch of documentation, and it's like, yep, these overlap. So I have been using it. It's pretty fun to use.
Well, it's
right,
that
last
time of day where
question.
you look like you've got an angel visiting you.
Oh, do I have a halo behind me? Yes.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah, I can
we do
fix
have
that.
one last question up here.
There you go. No more angel.
You got this. So, how do you fix a door that is placed in a sloped wall? Will the opening follow parallel to the door, or will it angle correctly for the core?
The opening will, well, first off, the door or the window is going to be vertical. There we go. Let me say this wall is sloped. This is going to be slanted. Sure, we'll put a 5-degree, 4-degree bevel on there. We will go put a door in here. So a lot of it depends on the type of door you're putting in as well. But if I go back and look at this in 3D, what do we got? A phase thing here. I'll just say get rid of that and say none because I put it in the wrong phase. So if I do have a slanted one over here, you know, this door is going to be set to be plumb, and the opening will cut the opening, but the opening will also be associated to the door. If you put a window in here, why am I not finding the host wall? Is this window set not to be? Oh man, I jacked with my window family and reloaded it in here for a client the other day. Oh, okay, so my window's not going to work here. Let's load now to the box one. Load family. I'm under annotation still. Windows. Sure. Sure. So you grab the window, and again, you can kind of see it is plumb when you start looking at here when the wall is slanted. I believe if you edit that family and you get rid of the vertical, always vertical, I think it follows the host, but I can't remember because it's not like I do a whole bunch of these with it. Load in a project. Yeah, like I said, I think they stay vertical, even if that's unchecked. I haven't found one that will follow the slope and do that. So if you're truly doing it, or if you really needed one to follow that slope, I think what I've had to do is create it as a face-based window. So it'll still cut the opening and then it works just fine. But yeah, I haven't found a way that if the wall's slanted to say, oh, no, wait, I lied. There's a checkbox in properties. I know this. There is orientation here. It's slanted. I knew they worked on that. So if you go in here and you say that's slanted, not vertical, you know, because we have slanted sliding doors, and then we cut a section through there with a section box. I guess I could have selected it first, then did the.
Yeah, you could have used the handy, not quite as good as coins.
Yeah, that would have been made way more sense. And then if you cut it through here, it does go parallel to perpendicular to the door. So if you have it as the opening is always staying to whatever the opening is set to if you're using the opening command. So you can see mine is on a slant. My sliding doors are, you know, going to be grinding and scraping, but hey, there you go. The downside that I found on this is since there is an opening in there, if you're truly trying to do this with like a door, it will leave that little bit of wedge underneath it. So you might need to make it, you know, might need to edit your families to have the openings be able to expand if you are going to slant them to go lower than what it is, because it does look to that, hey, I'm on the ground plane here. That's where I need to go. So it is sloping up. So if that's the case, you need to edit your families and give yourself an additional opening. Possibly if you wanted like the casing to go all, the frame to go all the way to the ground, you might need to do something custom more there too as well. But yes, so there's that slanted vertical option when you get into it. So it stays with the door. So hopefully it answers Anani Mouse's question. Other than that, we're at the top of the hour. Look at that. Perfect timing. That never happens on Revit Radio. So with that, we'd like to say thanks to everyone. You know, we don't do any marketing on this. So tell your friends, families, neighbors, anybody else you want to have kill a billable hour of usable billable work, and maybe pick up something about Revit, or maybe just hear me and Melissa say, yeah, I don't know. And learn how not to break things, because we couldn't break a whole lot of the stuff today. Just pass on the information. I will get this one downloaded. I will put it on my YouTube channel. Just Google the Revit Geek and you'll find me. The only thing I have on there is a few of these, and I've realized I haven't posted the last 3 months. So hopefully this week I'll get all of them done. So thanks on that for everybody, and hopefully we will see you next month. Ciao.
And